great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Come on in. You're not allergic to cats, are you?
I'm
A little bit?
Yeah, but I like cats. I like cats a lot, so
everyone else should be here on time.
Okay.
Cal.
I'm not late. I'm a little late.
No, you're 5 minutes early.
Am I really?
Yes.
Wow. I'm very impressed with myself.
Did you bike?
Yes.
You don't drink, do you?
I don't.
Would you like some? So I've been drinking a lot of matcha lately.
Okay.
I'm really into it. It's just like green tea.
I don't even know if I've ever had matcha, but there's a time to start, I suppose.
So that was an odyssey.
Whoa.
What are you working on right now?
What am I working on right now? Well, we're trying to pivot to video.
Oh, interesting.
Well, no.
Come in.
We're just trying to do it.
Hello.
Hey, nice to see you. Nice to see you. What was the show I attended?
Oh, it was always the night of the current affairs party. I was on it. I think we were all on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nathan. Do you go by Nate or Nathan?
I go by Nathan.
Okay. I mean, I'm a Michael, so I completely. He's a Benjamin. We all understand.
Oh, no one ever calls you Michael, do they? No matter how much do they Mike you? No matter how much you beg.
I don't really make a lot of new friends, so it's never a problem.
Because you kind of convince people to call you.
Yeah.
I know.
I just did a bunch of dishes, so you can have clean glasses.
Nice.
I know.
Do you drink?
I don't, but I have.
I made him some
He
tea.
made me
Okay,
tea.
cool. Do you want this?
I'm good.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I'll have some of your wine.
Yeah, have the wine.
I don't know why I just did this instinctually. Oh yeah, alcoholism.
What were we talking about? You're working on pivoting to video. You were saying.
Well, no, we so first we're just cranking out magazines all the time, but
Right.
I'm trying to finish up a book on socialism, and then we're doing a series of we're gonna do 100 videos in 100 days where we explain a number of political concepts and do interviews with fascinating people. We're just starting to set the whole that inner part of the office up as a sort of set for interviews.
Oh,
We're
okay.
getting some lighting in, and we're trying to.
I'm gonna be terrible, and Benjamin's peeing. I'm gonna go take like 2 drags of a cigarette.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
What were we talking about? Oh, there was like an empty room. Is that the room?
Well, the big center room where you came in.
Okay.
With the purple sofa.
Yeah.
We're setting that all up to do interviews.
What's the? So you said some of them were like explainer videos.
Some of them are explainer videos.
What's the target audience for those? Like,
well, the left has a very weak presence on YouTube.
the left has a. See, this is something I wanted to talk about. The left has a weak presence when it comes to entertainment in general and infotainment in general, and like.
Not entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. and there's like a couple of token leftist podcasts, and
Podcasts we're doing reasonably. We're starting podcasts. There are a number of good, decent podcasts.
well, so
You and I
of
both
course,
run good leftist
right.
podcasts. But video is really YouTube is just dominated by Nazis.
Yeah. YouTube's bad, or like Vox type shit.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. That's the alternatives. And of course everyone chooses the Nazis over Vox.
How could you not?
They're so fucking boring.
Right.
That at least the fascists are like entertaining.
Yeah.
So we were writing an article for a new issue on Alex Jones, and my colleague Eli, I don't know if you met him. He's He's spending hours and hours just watching. His job is to do the research, and my job is to bring the fun part of the article.
Right.
So he's just watching hours and hours of Alex Jones videos to try and understand the appeal.
Does he? So he also does research for your.
He does everything.
And so it's like how comedians will write jokes for other comedians, and then we're talking about how Eli, the other guy in the office at the party, does all the research, and Nathan gets all the glory because
pretty much
he can turn a phrase.
So I come in and weave his research into
That's it.
prose.
That's interesting.
And but yeah, so he's having to sift through all this awful content, all this conspiratorial nonsense.
So Eli's watching a ton of Alex Jones because they're doing
Watching Infowars.
a video
no.
on Infowars.
Yeah. It's gonna be a great
What?
article.
No.
It's gonna be a fun
an
essay,
article.
but
Oh, I didn't pour you a glass. I'm sorry. Sorry.
It's okay.
Alex Jones' big theory is that AOC is a meth addict.
Oh, yeah.
He dwells on this a lot.
Mhm.
It's like she's hiding from America that she's on meth.
It seems
What's
like he's
the-
projecting.
What's the like ultimate goal of watching all this Alex Jones footage?
To write a really good article explaining the appeal. So Eli's aunt is actually big. He was shocked because she got really into Infowars, and now she's like very difficult to talk to.
Right, of
And
course.
So when you're trying to understand these guys are so consequential. They have hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of viewers, and so if you're trying to think about how you de-radicalize people, I mean, I end up reading a lot of awful right-wing books, watching an awful lot of these things, because we're trying to understand like how do ordinary people turn into horrible conspiratorial fascist types.
Well, it looks like Alex Jones is doing the podcast junket, so maybe you can have him on the Current Affairs podcast.
Oh my God, that'd be
Because he did Joe
horrendous.
Rogan.
He did Joe Rogan, 4
Yeah.
hours. Eli had to watch all 4 hours. I watched about 10 minutes.
Mine down.
Oh, you're too loud?
Yeah.
Oh, holy shit. Yeah, yours are really loud. Yeah, so this is your knob. So I'm 1, 2, 3, and 4. So
Thank you.
Thank
you.
that's
Yeah,
generally all.
actually, me and Luke became friends. Luke, former guest on the show. We became friends in high school because we didn't really like talk, but somehow we found out that we used to both get as high as we possibly could and watch like Hannity just to see. Like just to like stare into the void. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is this? I think there's something to just like.
Did you find it rewarding? Was it?
No, of course not. It's fucking horrible. But like, sometimes you gotta look at the thing that you don't like.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
Opening up your third eye to Sean Hannity is like
Yeah, I mean, Current
exactly
Affairs.
the hellscape you would fucking think it is.
Current Affairs is notorious for their adamant, unwavering support for Tucker Carlson. I read that somewhere.
They who said that? They said, it was New York Magazine posted a thing where the left media diet, and they said Current Affairs who have a weird soft spot for Tucker Carlson.
It's I think it's the bow ties that he wears. I think sartorially, you guys are related.
I detest bow ties. This is a myth about people always think I'm the type of person who would like bow ties because I
You
like.
do have a very loud.
You're wearing.
I like
you're wearing a.
floral ties.
You're also wearing a velvet smoking jacket.
But bow ties are absurd. There's a limit to what I'll do. Bow ties.
Is Eli also sartorially? Because you kind of made a joke about this at the party where you were like, yeah, I dress like the enemy so I can infiltrate them or whatever. But like,
I think I have caused him to start dressing more like me because he started 2 months ago and he kind of assumed it was the office dress code, so he felt really uncomfortable when I tried not to make him uncomfortable when he didn't wear a tie, but he was uncomfortable, and so now he wears a tie and a velvet jacket every day.
Where do you get clothes like that?
Vintage stores, eBay,
Okay,
Etsy.
I assumed it was just like weird vintage stores where there's like a lady and like a kind of a cat. Probably.
Yeah, that's exactly
There's, like,
what
a
it is. It's that
feline-
lady and that cat.
Yeah.
That's where I get this.
how do you buy clothes on the internet and know that they'll fit you?
It's hard.
Yeah.
You estimate it by your size, and then you can send it back until it doesn't show up.
Yeah, you should try being a woman.
Dude, I've never returned anything. Like if I get something and it's the wrong thing,
Same, I give it to someone else.
well, I just feel like that's my punishment for being a fucking idiot.
Just deal with it forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot
stuck
of
with
the
your
time-
mistake.
Yeah, most of the time I don't get a better version of it, and it just sits there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
I'm very
that's right.
particular.
I'm dumb, and I deserved this.
No, I didn't deserve this. I'm sending it back. I'm demanding new ones.
In my closet is
I mean,
a dress
that's
that I.
self-respect. I don't have. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
you should
have
get
that.
You should try it.
In my closet is a dress that I bought for Susanna from ModCloth, and
ModCloth is the hardest to buy from.
it was
Yeah.
one size too large, and it's still in the closet.
Yeah, it sucks because when women are like, I'm a size blah, 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 I'm like, you're so thin that that's why you think that you could be one size.
Right.
Because, like, if they get a size too big, it'll still fit them. But it's very hard because most women are like, I'm between a 6 and a 22.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea what they are because every store is different.
I'm looking forward to, like, Jinkos making a comeback, because then I won't really have to worry.
Yeah,
You know?
about the size.
Do you remember Jinkos?
What is that? Oh, is this
The big pants?
The giant
Yeah.
pants everyone
Yeah.
wore in 1990. Which year was it?
I think 2002.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
So-
it was like late. Yeah, it was like the raver scene was part of it. Well, it depends. Like, so you
And
had
goth,
you had
right?
New metal, totally new metal.
Yeah, you had the new metal Jinko shorts, but then you had like the raver Jinko.
Oh, those were like
Pants.
extreme Jinkos.
Iga Mrzek
Yeah,
wore
yeah.
Jinkos in like the early 2000s, and I don't know what music she liked, but she was very like, I guess she was a metal kid.
See,
anyway,
generally people who wear Jinkos will tell you exactly what kind of music they like every time you see them.
I think it was just for the fashion. Like, I really
Wow.
think it was just the fashion.
Yeah.
Wait, where are you from?
Where am I from?
Many places?
Yeah, it's a complicated question because, as you can tell, I'm English originally.
Got
so
it. Okay.
Born there, raised mostly in Florida, then lived in Connecticut and Massachusetts for 10 years, and moved here 2 years ago.
Got it.
So before we
Number of
continue,
influences.
our
Oh.
guest today is Nathan J. Robinson, editor-in-chief?
in-chief.
Editor-in-chief of the Armed Forces and Current Affairs magazine.
Current affairs.
And he is English.
Sort of.
And yeah, so I grew up here, and I grew up with like a very intense, what's called a Yad accent. I don't know if you're familiar with the term.
Yeah.
Like major, like there are videos of me like from childhood where I'm like, yeah, mommy, how's it going? You know, whatever.
Oh fuck yeah, dude! I gotta see these.
Yeah, they were really
Does
funny.
your mom have that accent?
She turns it on and off, and it's involuntary. It
Yeah.
depends on who she's around. But yeah, but like I left New Orleans right after Katrina, not because of Katrina, but like I'm sorry, right before Katrina, and then I was in Central Louisiana, so I got like the Yat mocked out of me, and it like pulled me just far enough toward a country accent that I just ended up with this.
With a normal. It's like halfway
you don't
between
have
the two
the-
things is
yeah.
just American.
Yeah, like American Standard or whatever, like the broadcaster voice. There's a.
That's so funny that they made fun of you for like a
who are they
in
to-
Central Louisiana.
I mean, you know,
Who are they to judge?
yeah.
It's like it's too cultured. This Yat accent.
Yeah, and then I went to college in Baton Rouge, so it's like, you know. So yeah, you were saying Florida, and then what? Sorry, you were just about to say
Florida, then New England. So, so I just now have this horrible hybrid. And it varies too. Sometimes I sound more English, sometimes I sound more American. It just drifts in and out, and I never know which one I am
Yeah.
at any one
It's a
time.
cool accent. I just didn't know that you were ever English, so I was like, where does this come from?
I was once legitimately English, so
Yeah.
I do have some kind of claim to it.
I
right.
thought he was faking an accent.
I was like, why?
Most people throughout my life have assumed I'm faking it.
that. That's so annoying. Yeah.
well, no,
fun
I now I feel like an asshole, so that's good.
Every time I look at a YouTube video comment section that I'm
Oh,
myself,
no.
it's just full of people going, "You are a pretentious dick. Drop the fake accent." And I'm just so I can't.
That does
I can't
suck.
look at it.
I
It's
found
just-
out also Ketchy was because I thought she had a weird voice and she was born in England too. And I was like, oh, everyone I think has because I'm a huge asshole when it comes to voices and I judge people for how they talk.
Among other
And-
things.
Yeah, and it's no one's fault how they sound. Like I hate people that have really wet mouths. I hate Diane Mack on
Wet
WWNO.
mouths?
Yeah, you know Diane Mack. Do you ever listen to WWNO?
Ooh, oh,
Yeah. Anyway, so any kind of affectation it always makes me an asshole, and then 90% of the time I find out the person's actually from the place, and I'm just an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, talk about how the magazine
Yeah.
we all like read a bunch of your work in preparation for the podcast, but like I'm mostly interested in your backstory and like
okay.
like how you arrived at socialism for yourself and your own like political
okay.
inclination and like sort of the dawn of the magazine, like how the magazine got started.
Well, the magazine's been we're just going into volume 4. We started in November of 2015 with a small crowdfunding campaign. We ran it out of my living room for a little while. I had noticed that I am, even though I'm a leftist, I kind of didn't read any leftist magazines because I didn't like.
Right. No,
'cause
yeah.
political media is really dreary and boring, and
Yeah.
I thought, is that absolutely necessary? I should be the peak audience for this sort of thing, and yet
Right.
I'm not. So I thought I could make something decent, and it turns out it's really easy to make a magazine. It's incredibly easy.
I also think the landscape before, you said before like 2015.
Yeah.
There was a lot less to cover from a leftist perspective that didn't seem like just like curmudgeonly, basically. Because like there really wasn't like a whole lot of leftist opposition to like liberalism back then in any sort of like mainstream.
Yeah, it was
way.
just like Mother Jones taking pot shots at people, and like this is like because when did Jacobin start?
Jacobin started about 2010. Actually, they've been going for a while. Or 2011. So we essentially just. I mean, I looked at the Jacobin model, and then I got a stack of magazines from the newsstand, like Time magazine and things, and flick through them to see, and went like, this is really easy to do this kind of graphic design and things, and just I talked to Bhaskar, the founder of Jacobin, and about how he did it. And we just copied literally everything they did.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. We hired their web developer, hired their printer. We copied. Like the very start of the magazine, when we got our website, I was literally changing the internal email so it would be like, "Thank you for subscribing to Jacobin."
Right? Yeah. That's really funny.
It's like when those Alec bills go through and they still have the Alec stamp on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they still
but he was
say,
okay
like,
with that.
Oh, it was fun. It was really, and this is the thing. I mean, I'm forever grateful to Jacobin because they were really gracious. Even though we were like, how do we compete with you? How do we launch a competitor magazine? They were comradely.
That's nice.
But it's a little bit like what I was saying about how there isn't enough like leftist entertainment that doesn't suck total balls. It's like there shouldn't be. Jacobin shouldn't be the only game in town. Like,
right?
Because like stuff like New Left Review or whatever. Where is that based?
They're probably New York. They're all in New York.
But like it's like hyper academic and like doesn't really have like big circulation and and Jacobin was the introduction. I remember I think it was the first issue of Jacobin. They had an article about like how the Constitution is like an inherently conservative document, and the title of the article had been like changed to "Burn the Constitution," and I was like, okay, this is the kind of stuff we need, like a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more.
Yeah, it was interesting because Bhaskar said that when the draft was submitted, it was like it had a colon, it was like a 12-word title, and he's like, no, it's Burn the Constitution because you want something that people actually are interested in reading,
right?
Which was a novel idea at the time. So he really pioneered the idea that you could write a left political magazine that would be people might actually want to pick up.
Yeah,
it's always seems so fucking like such a just puss move when people like bring up the Constitution to defend anything. Like,
yeah, even if it's a leftist position, I know. I'm like, I think we should just not really care. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea that
I know
it's
that
like
you have to, if you're talking specifically about something that depends on, like, if you're talking about changing something through legislation, and you'd have to. But when people are talking about from a purely ideological perspective,
from any moral standpoint.
No, I was just gonna say
it's a fucking made up document.
We were taught in civics class that it's like this metaphysically magical document that ensures the peaceful transfer of power, and
especially by liberals, because liberals would like justify their positions and be like, no, I actually am a good American. I love the Constitution.
And like half of the fucking amendments are just like that other amendment sucked, so no more of that one.
Right. And like Roe v. Wade is not actually like constitutionally sound. Like I think
this is the funny thing.
Yeah.
Is like liberals spend so much time trying to explain why the abortion rights are in the Constitution.
And I'm like, they're not.
Yeah,
it's not. The right to privacy, extrapolating that the right to privacy means that a woman can have an abortion or anyone can have an abortion who's pregnant, whatever. Like that doesn't, it actually is not constitutionally sound. The Constitution sucks dick. Who cares? Like we should be able to have abortions.
Yeah, exactly.
That was actually the first title that Bhaskar got. The Constitution sucks dick. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I'm a lawyer by training as well, and I worked at a couple of different ACLU offices, and this was one of the things that was so frustrating about the ACLU is that everything is made in terms of a constitutional argument.
Right.
Well, actually, the death penalty is cruel and unusual under the Constitution, and in fact, just Justice Scalia had a point when he said, well, nobody ever meant it that way. You know, he was an originalist. He said, nobody wrote the document this way. How can you read in this value that's just the thing that you think is good? And it was always difficult for liberals to respond to the originalist justices, the conservative justices, because it's true. It's
They're
a
playing the
conservative
same game.
document.
Yeah.
It was written by property-holding white men who wrote it to serve their interests. So of course it's a conservative document.
Which is just has historically been the liberal approach, is just to interact on conservative terms exclusively forever, and expect and yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating to watch. Me like clutching my brow and putting my head down leads me to I think I saw, I don't know if it was the title of one of the podcasts or one of the articles. It's not one that I read. The idea that like despair or like doomerism is like, I don't know. Have you recently written on doomerism?
I wrote an article called "Hopelessness is Conservative."
Yes, that. So what's the gist of that?
Well, you know, one of the common threads in conservative arguments is futility, right? One of the things that conservatives always argue is that you can't change anything because human nature is fixed. People are selfish. People are cruel. Progressive social movements are always going to fail because they are running up against the facts of our brutal nature.
And they've been saying that for so fucking long.
They say it about everything.
That's like the whole,
right?
That's what like existentialism is an opposition to, is like that sort of like feudalism.
Every single time they make the same argument. You can track it from generation to generation, and no matter what the issue is, it's always, well, you can't make any progress. And so in that way, the conservative worldview is trying to get you to accept that you can't do anything, accept a kind of hopelessness. And so that's why I feel like despair and feelings of doom sort of play into the hands of the opposition, because they accept this premise that things can't be changed. And there are plenty of people who have a vested interest in having you accept that, because if you accept that you can't change anything, you won't try to change anything. But actually, it turns out that a lot of these institutions, a lot of the interests of the powerful are weaker than they would have you believe. They have to enforce this with ideology because they know that if a lot of people got together, things might change much faster than people might think.
And I think they know that, and that's why there's like so much violence behind conservatism, because like it depends on keeping people in quietism to the point where if they do start fighting, they'll probably win the popular support. So if there's not brute force against it to just scare the shit out of people, then, you know, they lose.
Yeah, law and order, yeah.
So your ideas about hopelessness, primarily you're talking about the idea of human nature as like forever shitty.
Individualistic.
Or does it also extend to like despair when it comes to like for me, when I indulge despair, it's like we are structurally fucked.
So if you take, there was a lot of this in 2011. I went to a number of the Occupy camps in Boston and New England, and I think this kind of idea that we're structurally fucked really pervaded Occupy.
Yeah.
There was a sense it's not worth running for office because there's so much money in politics that you can't win. What changes do you want to see? I don't know. It was just a kind of like, we don't know what to do. All of the avenues are closed to us, so we're just going to camp and we're just going to register our discontent. But I feel like there has been kind of a shift because there's been a discovery that it's true, as I say, that institutions are vulnerable. And I think the Ocasio-Cortez victory really shows this, right? Where you had a 10-term incumbent, a guy who had 10 times as much money, who was one of the most well-connected Democrats in Congress. Turns out he was incredibly vulnerable, and that, a 28-year-old bartender with some left policy ideas could beat him on a shoestring budget just by knocking on some doors.
Right.
So I think it's important not to accept necessarily that everything is truly structured against you, because they do want you to think that.
Right.
And you don't always know. Sometimes there are openings that are not visible or obvious.
Have you written at all about, I'm sorry to monopolize, I have one more question, which is, have you written at all about the possibility of court packing? in the near future?
I have not written about court packing, but my colleague Vanessa B., who is our social media editor, wrote an excellent article about court packing in which she argues very strongly in favor of it.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah. I mean have any Democratic candidates who've declared mentioned it yet?
No.
Yeah, of course not.
No.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't like say it out loud anyway.
Yeah, at least I mean this is the thing about Elizabeth Warren. Like I think that she has like doubled down a few times on like I'm a capitalist or whatever, but it's hard to know.
You know, she's a difficult person to read because she has things that send up big red flags for me. Like, for example, she was a Republican until 1996. When she was asked why she stopped being a Republican, she said because they weren't committed enough to the market.
She wanted to save
not know that.
capitalism.
She wanted to save capitalism, and she didn't think they wanted to save capitalism. And you think, that's bad. That's concerning. And of course, she's a law professor, and I'm very suspicious of law professors. Well, for the reasons that we talked about, where like lawyers tend to see things through like, well, I'm defending the Constitution. At the same time, she's been fantastic recently.
Right.
She's proposed initiative. She's the first one to go like, no, we got to break up the tech companies. Period.
Yeah.
She's the first one to say like, we got to put workers on corporate boards. Every corporation should have to have representatives of the workers on its board. But there's a big question with her. First, there's a pragmatic question: would she be a good candidate? I think her handling of the native thing shows that she might not be.
Yeah.
But then there's also like, how radical is she in her bones in her?
Is she just trying to do all this because it actually, from a market perspective, isn't good to have one company that controls the whole economy? Yeah,
Right. That's the argument, right? Is that when you have antitrust, when you break up the companies, it
it's
makes
better
the market
for
work
business,
better.
right?
So.
And not that it's better for people, which would interesting.
I don't know. To me, I think she could win because I think she's like, even with the like her flaws, I think she's reads enough as a genuine person to most people that like she would have that on her side.
It's so sad it was so sad to see the Instagram of her pouring a beer in her kitchen. I was like, Liz,
what?
stop.
Was it all head?
It was just like, she's just this dorky, like kind of, dorky old lady who's not even old, like middle-aged lady who just saw someone have a beer. Who was it? Was she trying to copy? Anyway, I forgot who she was trying to copy, but it was on Instagram Live, and it was just like if my mom got on Instagram Live and was like, "Okay, how do you send
in Cedar
it?"
Rapids.
Yeah.
But that's why she's kind of relatable and endearing, even when it
was
her
cute.
The attempts really fail.
Well, it's so much easier to be
gives a fuck.
It's so much easier
I
to
like
be
her.
endeared by that kind of gaffe when when they actually have policy proposals that don't completely suck.
Yeah.
Like when Hillary Clinton is like, I'm chilling in Cedar Rapids, like that's not endearing because there's no there like in terms of policy. Like all the her response to a $15 minimum wage is like, what about like $10.50? It's
What
just
about
like,
if I had a beer instead?
right? Yeah.
I'm gonna go get more wine. Yeah.
Me as well.
Did y'all both read the Andover address?
No.
Did you read it?
No.
I really liked it as a class trader, and you're also a hella class trader.
Yeah.
And you have a little bit of a pedigree of elite institutions, if my snooping.
That's true.
And like,
I didn't go to college.
yeah. It's like we're high school, college, and grad school. We're like the spectrum.
I got kicked out of high school.
Yeah.
I'm very stupid.
I almost got kicked out of high school.
So,
also. Yeah.
but my parents are.
No, she's not
I'm
super.
very
Yeah. How was the experience so what was the occasion for the address at Andover, and how was it?
So one of the so this is Andover.
I did read this. Sorry.
Phillips Andover is the I think the most well-endowed private school in the United States. It's got $1 billion endowment.
Huge dicks.
It's the Bush family went there.
Yeah.
It funnels students into the corridors of power.
Right.
And they have one of the librarians there is a socialist, and also happens to be in charge of picking speakers to come and is able to secure them a bit of money. And he is a current affairs subscriber, so he sort of arranged for me to come and give a speech to these incredibly
awesome.
wealthy students.
That's so funny.
Which was
It's awesome that he got away with that.
Yeah, well, actually, some of the thing is, the student body was very receptive because even though like a lot of them are extremely wealthy, the school, in order to assuage its guilt and discomfort over its position in the American elite, lets in a lot of they make a big show of how diverse the student body is, how many poor kids they give scholarships to. So actually now the Andover today is probably quite different. It still doesn't change the fact that its function is the same, which is that it takes people instead of like actually changing the structure of power, it just takes people and lifts a few very lucky people
it
up.
replicates the class with a few new faces.
And helps people not feel better about it, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it legitimizes the elite by making it more diverse.
Liberalism.
It's liberalism, right? It's so the address, I was asked to come and try and explain socialism, but it's funny because I didn't really get many criticisms in the Q&A from the students. They were just like, "Oh, could you explain a little more about this particular thing?" But it was not confrontational at all.
No one was like, "What about fucking Pol Pot, dude?"
So take me through just very briefly the experience of giving it. Like, were you nervous going in? Like, because the speech starts with like, so I'm gonna spend the next 20 minutes trying to convince you all to be socialists.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bold opening, and like, was there any sort of tittering in the audience?
Nah, I mean, I've done now a few different speaking engagements, and one of the things that you find out is that, well, you know how like. I don't know if you ever watched the videos where Ben Shapiro goes and speaks and he has a Q&A and he just like posts these videos of him like destroying
With facts and logic.
Some like scared student.
One of the things is that when you do these, you have a real advantage over anyone in the Q&A because you have the microphone and they're standing down in the audience. So you don't really end up being... So what I've learned after doing a few of these is that you're not really going to end up humiliated.
Right.
You could just point at them and shout at them. Even if they've made a really, really good point, no one will ever know they've made a good point.
That's why, like, hecklers at comedy shows just can never fucking...
They never win, even if they were
physically
funny people.
Lower than the comic on stage. The person has a mic, and it's just...
Unless the comic is awful and the heckler's very good. I've seen it sometimes, but only if it's a man on stage and a woman heckling. That's the only time it's allowed. Sorry.
That's absolutely right.
No, but it's different with comedy because you're in a small space. You're talking about a large room where if you want to manipulate it, you don't have to acknowledge they had a good point. You can just act like they had a bad point.
You have all the advantages.
Right.
So that's what I've learned is that it's actually nothing to be terribly nervous about because...
You've extended, I think, standing invitations for people to debate you. Who are they? Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, I mean, really anyone. I mean, I'll debate. Someone tried to arrange a debate with Charlie Kirk. That didn't work. Jordan Peterson. We just had another one actually, where a small college in Washington was trying. The large organizations, Turning Point, will pay. They paid a $30,000 speaking fee. The college can't afford it, but the national organization will pay Ben Shapiro to come to these colleges. And they were having Ben Shapiro come, and so the lefty group was like, well, we want to make it a debate. But of course, they won't do a debate. So they approached them, and they wouldn't make it a debate. So fortunately...
It's so funny that, I mean, like, these things are, like, culturally necessary in a lot of ways. But also, it's so fucking similar to, like, dude, I will fight anybody.
Yeah.
Man. Anybody challenges me, I will fucking
Yeah.
It ends up. It's so.
Yeah, but they don't really want.
My two friends, facts and logic. I was holding up my fists on. All right, that's enough.
Yeah, visual jokes.
Yeah, visual jokes on the podcast. That's my forte.
But that's the thing, they don't really want a debate because every time I've had a student group try and set up a debate, it's always been that the conservative campus group goes, well, actually, we don't want to do it as a debate. And I think these guys know that a actual debate, when you put people on an equal stage, is a very high risk thing for them because they could lose a debate. You can't lose a speech. It might not be that well received, but on YouTube a speech looks fine. A debate is just so high risk, and you actually have to defend yourself, which if you have indefensible positions is kind of hard.
It seems like you really you have I mean, I know that some of it is because you think that it's important to figure out the appeal of these people, like but you kind of also like it. It's like, no, you don't like it. You don't like watching them.
It's painful.
It's painful.
But
you don't think it's fun.
You don't like hating it?
You don't like hating it. It's
I'm
not like
a masochist. I don't
it's
want to
not like
do it.
Harvard reality TV.
No, I really. Now my colleague Eli,
You got to
who
get
watches
really fucking high and do it. That's
He
what you gotta
likes
do.
it. I don't like it. I really would rather. There are so many things I'd rather be doing, and I only watch as much as I feel is strictly necessary in order to do whatever article I'm researching or to prepare for whatever thing I'm doing.
Does watching Alex and I would probably really depress me, but do you get really depressed watching Alex Jones?
I haven't watched much Alex Jones yet. Eli's working on the watching Alex Jones. I have to do. I've been putting it off.
Yeah,
but I think I'm going to get.
It makes me really sad whenever I actually look at right wing Twitter. And that's why I don't look at it that much, and I just assume everyone has like pretty decent opinions all the time. Like I'm like the opinions range from like the worst people in the world are just like annoying liberal people because I don't follow people I hate.
The bubble is comfortable. I
think it's okay to be in the bubble though if you're not for you. But I think that the bubble's okay for most people. You don't have to torture yourself any more than
exactly.
Yeah.
The bubble seems like I mean, it's definitely real and definitely enforced by tech companies for the sake of ad revenue, but it also seems like a little bit of a liberal excuse where it's like we would all just understand each other better and we could unite and like hold hands across the aisle or whatever. If only it's like no, we are operating on completely different ideological premises.
Dude, if there's any reason to get out of the fucking bubble, it's to like have a stronger defense. Fuck those people.
That's the thing. I don't need to do that online because I talk to a cop every single day who like will tell me why Trump is good. So like that works at the school I work at. So like I'm outside of the bubble talking to people like that all the time when I have. So I know what they think and I know why they think it. And he's also not stupid.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to say that when you there is a kind of naivety in thinking that when we just talk to people on the other side, we're gonna discover what we have in common. You might discover that you actually don't have much in common, and that the thing that their vision of what a just and decent world is really very different from your own, and that you will discover some people who can be persuaded. And I write for people who can be persuaded. I consider us a leftist magazine for non-leftists, but that is going to be a percentage of the overall of everyone. It's not going to be everyone, and there are going to be plenty of people where you discover. I watch someone like Shapiro, and I'm like, he has a deep-seated bigotry against Arabs and Muslims. He's never going to be cured of it. You can present every argument in the world that they're decent people. You can show that everything is wrong. He's not going to come around.
Right.
Well, I mean, this is why circular.
When you say it's a magazine for non-leftists, that gets into something that I wanted to ask you about, but I'm sort of losing my train of thought here. Oh, yeah, but I also think if you're really trying to get people who don't see eye to eye with you to see things differently, I don't think that engaging them in a conversation is necessarily a good way to do it. I think the better way to do it is to get what you want done and then show them that
why it's better.
It's better.
Yeah.
There's this other thing where it's not just about winning an argument. I think this is one of the fundamental liberal delusions, is that like if you show that the facts are wrong, people will have to come around to your side. That's not the only way you persuade people. You also persuade people by, because human persuasion operates somewhat irrationally, by just being more likable and cooler and more interesting. This is one of the ways that, like, for example, when we approach the magazine, we are like, well, let's just make it such a readable, interesting magazine that people who strongly disagree with it still want to pick it up. Right? Because it's fun. And that's what we get. We get emails from people going, I don't agree with any of your arguments. I haven't come around on any of the arguments yet. But I still find myself reading the magazine because it's just the writing is good. And if you watch, for example, ContraPoints on YouTube,
I love ContraPoints.
She makes reasoned argument. She's very rigorous
Who
and
is it?
philosophical. She operates a YouTube channel that's dedicated largely to responding to right-wing arguments, but
Yeah.
she does so using comedy and theatrics and aesthetics, and those things are just as important to the persuasion as seeming really funny and likable.
Right, and the idea that good rigorous argument and entertainment are mutually exclusive is extremely stupid and damaging. And like I think that the left has a lot to learn from like the soulless logic of spam email when it comes to persuasion. In that like it's a lot of it is just a numbers game, and 10,000 people read it, and 1,000 people read to the end, and 20 of those are persuaded.
It's, some people there's always like, oh, well, should we have a Fox News of the left? And you go, well, no, because obviously that would be horrendous because it will make people stupid. We don't want people to be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the right has done a fantastic job with propaganda, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the numbers because if most people, when they find out what right-wing beliefs actually entail, are horrified by them because they're inhuman. And I tend to think most people are fairly decent, the majority, not all. But they've done a phenomenal job selling this horrendous point of view through an effective propaganda apparatus. Partially that's because they have a lot more money, but it's also because they think about, well, how do you effectively bring people's opinions from being one thing to being another thing?
Well, I mean, the idea that we don't have a Fox News of the left, and we don't have a Fox News of the radical left, but we have a Fox News of liberalism, and it's
everything else.
the reason we don't have a Fox News of the left is that it's impossible to like engage in earnest leftist discourse at that level.
Yeah,
it's like incredibly. I mean, it is Rachel Maddow talking about fucking Russia every second of every day.
It's reductive and pointless. And and a lot of it's not that exciting. Like most stuff that leftists talk about isn't the stuff that people get really excited about.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, historically, even communist propaganda is like book length. Do you know what I mean? It's like you got really good graphic design and posters, and you have book length shit.
It's true, but I also, we also don't want, I think, to further the idea that things that are substantive have to be dull,
right,
and they have to be long-winded and tedious. I do think it's possible to explain ideas very clearly and compellingly and have substantive discussions that are actually not boring. I don't think those things are exclusive.
I think this is one of the only things that separates a time that gets very fetishized in American history and the American left, but the late 60s, early 70s. One of the only things they did right was connecting that they needed to have a vision for a more fun world.
Yeah.
And or even
right,
just the in your face iconography of the Black Panthers. It's
right,
very much there's style and substance together, and if you aren't presenting something that people actually want to be interested in and is cool and is fun, then it's not gonna fucking happen.
Black Panthers were the fucking pinnacle of the intersection of good politics and coolness. I just every time I just am so nostalgic.
For the Black Panthers?
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm fucking joining, man.
Your friends in the Black Panthers?
Hell yeah.
Wait, can white people join the Black Panthers?
I think you can be a fellow traveler and participate in some of the direct action stuff.
One of my coworkers
there also was
uncle's a Black Panther.
there were white Panthers that were alongside Black Panthers, the MC5, the band, fucking Kick Out the Jams, they were part of that too.
Wait, really? Kick Out the Jams MC5 was
dude.
White Panthers affiliated. Yeah.
Fucking free John Sinclair, man.
so good, dude.
Well, that's one of the reasons the Black Panthers were so terrifying to the United States government, is because it was so obvious that they had very strong appeal, that people respected them, and that they were not only doing good community work, but building up popular opinion in the places where they worked.
And that's how they did it. The mutual aid element of the free lunch program was so fucking effective.
Yeah.
And scared the shit out of the government. So they killed him.
Where was this is a little bit of a I don't know why I'm so inarticulate today. A change in subject. That's what I was looking for. What was the timing of the People's Policy Project relative to current affairs, and did either one inform the other with regard to, like, for example, like the crowdsourcing element?
We started a little bit before them, I think, and although I had been reading Matt Bruning's writing for a long time before that, so he is an incredibly clear writer, and I did take a lot of the way that I write about politics was influenced by him, and then I don't know who the crowdfunding thing is, just the way everyone started doing things. I mean, I think Chapo Trap House were probably the first to succeed in really showing that you could make a fucking fortune on crowdfunding. And then I thought, well, this is, it actually is a very, very viable business model, and it turns out it is.
It seems like a lot of like it's a major supplementary revenue stream for current affairs. Like you like in the website copy, it's like, if you want to support current affairs, fucking Patreon for the podcast is, like it's why is it so much easier to crowdfund a podcast than a magazine? Like it's always boggled my mind, like, why there isn't like a cooperatively run magazine that's entirely crowdfunded.
We are, in a sense, crowdfunded because, we are solely funded by the subscriptions. The model is kind of the same for the podcast and the magazine. It's just that the podcast is on Patreon. And I actually like that most of our revenue doesn't come through Patreon because Patreon takes a cut.
A huge cut, yeah.
So we could probably do the magazine as well through Patreon, but then we'd lose a bit of money. But I think it really is very viable to have reader and listener supported thing. That's one of the real exciting things about our time is that there are actually, you don't have to have advertisers. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you can actually, you pay all your writers like a decent,
we pay all of our writers, and we pay them. We can't pay them as much as I'd like, but we pay them competitively with national publications.
That's great.
It's more than, I there's a website, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called whopayswriters.com or something. And you guys are legitimately, you pay well.
Yeah.
How'd y'all come to New Orleans? Or sorry, are you still going about the club?
It's just that the only reason we pay well is because if the pay is such shit that it doesn't take much to pay well. If you pay $100 for an online article, you are paying well.
Right.
Which is tragic.
That's disgusting.
No. I mean,
like Slate Slate pays like fucking 10 cents a word. It's like, or less.
I think that it's cool that you're paying what you can, and if y'all made more money, you would pay more, right?
It's true.
Yeah. Because it's like it's only morally reprehensible when people, if no one's making any money and everyone's writing for free, it still sucks not to pay writers, but it's a lot different than if someone's making money and not paying writers.
Right.
And major,
I didn't mean it like y'all. I just mean
I know. I'm with you. It's like when you give someone $77 for a comedy show and you're taking home nothing, and you put out a tip because you have a 4-door deal, or 4-wall deal. So you have a deal where the only thing you get to do is a comedy show, and you don't get any money from the bar, and you don't charge a cover. And if you do, it goes to the bar anyway. And then someone's like, I'm only getting $7, and you're like, I'm making $0.
Right.
In some instances, I took this money out of the ATM so I could give everyone $5. So that's different from someone who's charging at the door, giving you $5 when everyone paid $5 to go. Is all I meant.
It's stunning how writer compensation has diminished in over the last 30 years, right? I was just reading a memoir from a guy who was an editor at Rolling Stone, I think, in the 80s, and Esquire in the 80s. In the early 80s, writers were getting $1 a word. And
that's before adjusting for inflation.
Right.
Yeah, that's nuts.
You get $1,000 for 1,000 words.
Wow.
And so it's just dropped to nothing. And I blame, in part, the parts that I blame the most is Arianna Huffington and the Huffington Post, because they established the norm that you could have professional written content that you paid
nothing for. Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah, I used to work for a horrible local publication that operated on like giving, the whole internship model, but it also had no reputation, so it wasn't even helping people in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
They pay you an exposure, but there is no exposure.
There was no exposure. No one was reading
comedy
it.
festivals.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, the only exposure is bodily.
Yeah.
Another visual.
Mary, you were trying to ask how the.
Why y'all in New Orleans? I'm glad y'all are, but. How'd that happen?
Because everywhere else is worse than
Yeah.
why would you choose? Well, this is the thing is that because we were just subscriber supported and we were operating out of my living room, once we got to the point where we had enough money to have an office, we could open that office anywhere. And I like this city more than I like every other city for reasons that I'm sure you're all...
It's better than the
Because
rest of them.
they're just in it. You go through everything, and you go through every cultural thing, and
The culture to cost of living ratio is the highest for sure. Yeah.
I've only lived here, so I don't really know. But
don't go other places. It's
yeah,
just
so don't even don't learn.
So, but then there's another thing, which is that every single magazine goes to New York. There's been this really damaging trend where local media has disappeared essentially in a lot of parts of the country, and it's all concentrated in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, a little bit Chicago, but even Boston was losing publications. The Atlantic was in Boston, the Baffler was in Boston. They went to New York. Everyone goes to New York. So, there need to be publications in other places. There just need to be. Because there are lots of different places, and they all need to have... And when they're all in the same place, everyone's friends, and it's an incestuous thing, and they don't criticize each other, because you're going to run into the people you criticize at events, and it'll be awkward. But here, I can make fun of people in the media, and I'm never going to see them, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if you do, you have that like little advantage of like, oh well, I don't see him very often.
I don't know
Home
you.
field advantage also.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit to the idea of... I was listening to the Meet the Presidential Candidates episode of the Current Affairs podcast, which is fantastic and like extremely entertaining. And I that's the first one I've listened to where it was like so many people. It's like how many people were like 8?
We had too many people.
Yeah, no, I mean, like everybody was nobody was stepping on each other. It was really good. But I get the impression that everybody has, or not everybody, but a lot of people have a connection to like Yale Law, maybe. Like what is the connection to? I really find it extremely interesting how people navigate their affiliations with elite institutions as it pertains to socialism.
Yeah. So I have a few. We have.
I'm not
people have different
coming after you, by the way.
No,
I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah, it's important to my background actually. I did first. I went to Yale Law School, and then I went to Harvard Graduate School in sociology. And it was, for me, this is actually very formative to my politics because neither of my parents went to college, and I didn't know anybody who'd been to these institutions growing up. And when I got in them, I was disgusted and horrified by them, and and the people that I was around I really disliked, and so I had a very visceral disgust.
Right.
So I bought,
those people destroy the world.
Yeah, right.
It's the center of the worst fucking people on earth.
And I didn't buy the idea of meritocracy from it because I was, I'm not a fool completely, right? But I did kind of have a sense that the people in those places were smart. And when I got to them, I was like, my God. Nobody's running the ship, right? All the people who are like supposed to be in charge of the country, they don't know anything. They just don't know anything about the place that they live. And so I kind of bonded with the people in those institutions that I met who were similar to me in their kind of distaste for the places, which is why a lot of those people have been the current affairs people I found.
Yeah.
So, we do have an obscene number of degrees from Ivy League law schools among us. And not everyone. But I like to think that they are not the type of people who are representative of those places.
And they're probably in crushing debt, so that also makes
That was actually one of the more entertaining moments of the Current Affairs Mardi Gras party was there was a moment where like 7 or 8 people were just reeling off how much student debt they were in. Yeah.
Michael's pouring wine into an empty beer bottle right now. I just wanted to say that's the peeing sound you're hearing. Anyway.
I'm also peeing.
Yeah.
140,000 is me. Debt.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, and I think...
Damn, subscribe to the fucking Patreon. Shit.
Yeah.
Give this poor man who went to Yale and Harvard your money.
Yeah. So you're still working on your dissertation?
All your
Did you
money
say that?
Weird vintage shops, dude. You gotta save.
No, I know. But that's the thing, right? Is that at no point... This is why every millennial hates capitalism, right? Because even people who have sort of done everything to get to the top of the supposedly meritocratic thing, find themselves drowning in debt and find themselves doing unpaid internships and they're part of the same. Now, some people who are born with money can escape that, but if you're not born with money, then you end up with degrees and debt.
Right, exactly.
Because there are no jobs.
Right.
No,
You just have to have wealth.
Yeah, I went to a public state school and I only have an undergrad degree, but the reason I have my job is that I worked at a school for 5 years and then was like, give me a full-time job. But you don't even have to have a degree to do my job. So my degree was pointless, but it was a cheap degree, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In grad school, I also I could tell from the Meet the Candidates episode of your podcast that that is what had happened, that you had all gravitated to each other out of mutual disgust for the institution and everyone around you. And I had a very similar experience in grad school. I don't know. What I was
Talk some shit about writers, dude. Let's hear it.
Here's what I'll say. I did not know when I was there, my stipend was $16,000 a year. And then when I was on fellowship, it was $18,000 a year. And I didn't know that about half of the people there were just trust fund babies, and they were like stretching the money in ways that seemed impossible to me, and turns out it wasn't possible. Yeah. But yeah, and that was just like, and actually I really did like a lot of them. I would say
it's easy to stop liking someone once you realize they don't have to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the worst thing is when people pretend to not have money when they do have money, because there's the thing about being embarrassed by your wealth and then going, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then you're concealing your true self and kind of lying to people.
Right.
That I don't like. And there was a lot of that, right? We know from the stats that, pretty much everyone at Yale has parents who have advanced degrees and are earning $100,000 or more a year.
Right. And paid for them to get in.
And yet everyone is pretending that they're like,
Struggling.
oh God, I'm struggling. Yeah, and that's the thing that's really obnoxious.
Yeah, what a dumb fucking suit to put on. Like,
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
Well, wealth should be embarrassing, though. Is the one thing.
I
Is that
agree.
like you understand why people are embarrassed to
It's
open?
embarrassing.
embarrassing.
It is.
It shouldn't be like
It is.
like if you do it in secret.
Yeah.
that goes beyond embarrassing. Then what's more embarrassing is that you're doing it in secret.
And you're reinforcing a bunch of American myths that are super fucking destructive, like the idea that it's entirely meritocratic.
Right.
Yeah.
But should rich people even have opinions on it?
I would say
Because I was born rich, and I definitely have opinions, but I try not to talk about them that much, which I don't think I should, because it doesn't really matter.
I don't think that I don't think that it's not. I don't think in terms of opinions. Like FDR was the #1 greatest class trader of all time. Like that dude was a baller. He did good work. He interned
but
some
that was
Japanese
mostly
people.
for the economy, and not for right.
What do you mean?
Like that was mostly to save the economy, not because he believed in saving people.
That motherfucker gave a speech. I don't remember when it was, but he was basically like, I think it was during one of the elections, and he was like, never before have like business interests and blah 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 been so united in their hatred of a candidate, and I welcome their hatred.
Right.
Like he like so at least rhetorically he was like,
I mean, he was a complex dude.
Yeah, but I mean,
also, Mary Devin, you've never like presented yourself inauthentically.
it's not about me. Not about me.
except for the time you said my dad works at a bank.
Yeah, I should have said he's a banker. But yeah, that was he works for anyway. No, it's embarrassing,
It is,
and you don't realize that you're. I went to Sacred Heart. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's an all-girls Catholic school, and it's like the most expensive one. And you don't think that you're rich because everyone there is rich. And then I went to LSU, and none of my friends grew up rich, and so then I started to realize that I grew up rich, and I like kind of tried to hide it, and then eventually I was like, oh wait, y'all are coming to my parents' house and hanging out, like so it wasn't that big of a deal because in Louisiana it's different, and like I wasn't around like, you know what I mean, like I didn't continue getting like, anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about myself. The point is I understand the argument that like people who were born rich shouldn't even, their opinions don't really matter in this way.
If your opinions are the correct opinions, it's fine. It's not about who you are. It's about whether you're right.
Yeah.
I could see your eyes kind of flitting around when I was talking about FDR. What do you have to say about FDR?
Yeah, well, no, you're right. It's complicated because on the one hand, the I welcome their hatred thing, and more radical probably than any other president in American history on economic issues. On the other hand, as I understand it, the historical consensus is that it had to be that radical,
right?
Because the rise of a hard left meant that in order to save capitalism, you had to make a series of compromises so that in order to stop
the rise of the radical left.
Rise of the radical left.
Yeah.
So in some ways, he is someone who's like telling his
and
fellow
Elizabeth
capitalists,
Warren
telling his
figure.
fellow capitalists, unless you give some serious concessions, your days are numbered. So and so he's the man who saved capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. I would take an FDR right about now.
Oh God, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, going way back to what I kind of stopped talking about, but I was trying to make that point. As far as the presidential candidates right now, it seems like far and away ahead at the front. Like really, the only person anyone should like be putting any effort towards is Bernie. And then there's a huge giant.
I would
gap.
put Elizabeth
then-
Warren up there
well,
before
here.
the gap. No, go ahead.
Huge giant gap.
Then Elizabeth Warren, then another huge.
Exactly. Then Elizabeth Warren, and then a giant gap,
Yeah.
and then a pile of dog shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, except for like some of the like
So,
unknown.
you know what
or
sucks
dark
ass,
horses.
though, is that I did go to LSU, and a lot of my friends are liberals in Shreveport whose whole families think that Joe Biden is
yeah?
Ocasio-Cortez. So they think that Joe Biden should be the
Dude,
president.
people think it's fucking
They
Onion
think-
Biden. Like they think they're
Yeah,
gonna, like,
they want to elect Onion Biden.
they think they're gonna be able to vote for the songs
I
"The Boys
know.
Are Back in Town."
You know what, though? And it was like talking about how Trump voters aren't stupid. You know who's really not stupid? People who are only around Trump voters, so they don't understand that, like, people who defend the creepy things Biden's done and people who defend his horrible positions on student loan debt, even though my friend works at a grocery store and has crippling debt from LSU, and she still loves Joe Biden.
Right.
Because she's so afraid of socialism because her family thinks that he's a socialist.
Yeah,
So I'm
his
really, really
track
worried
record
because
is-
she does vote. And
Yeah.
and I love her, and I don't think that she's stupid.
He's leading in the polls for a reason. Like there are a ton of people like that.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
And I mean, and a lot of it stems from a lack of exposure to ideas further left than
Right.
Clintonism, basically.
And this, okay, so that's what I wanted to ask you about, like going into this, and you touched on it. You talk about Current Affairs as like a magazine for a leftist magazine for people who aren't leftists.
Right.
Is it even possible, or like how could it be possible to like actually have like reach a critical mass with leftist media where it's going to like get to people that it needs to get to in the face of fucking like MSNBC?
Yeah,
like it's,
right.
Is that even possible?
I mean, well,
Because like I
Yeah.
just to
Right.
you know to suck your dick for a second here. I think your writing is great.
Yeah.
And I feel like if
suck
a lot,
away.
I think if a lot of people, I'm doing it right now. But like if
he's sucking his dick. He's still talking, though.
yeah, I have a huge mouth. It's not a small dick. But like if more people read stuff like that, it would help so fucking much.
Right.
Like
Right.
people need to be exposed to like these kind of ideas and these kind of ideas expressed in an entertaining, like fucking witty way.
Yeah.
It just has to happen.
Right.
But like it's not yet.
No.
It's kind of getting there in some
Well,
ways,
right.
but like
So
not. How many more people could like listen to Chapo? Yeah, or like
Well, I mean, this is-
whatever your like ideal
This-
fucking version of that is.
This is what I'm saying is that I want to fucking write an essay that's like the idea that like there are too many podcasts. Shut the fuck up. Like
know.
I want to
Yeah,
write
who
an essay
cares?
that's like
It's amazing
Start a
to
fucking
some extent.
podcast.
Right.
Like if you read Current Affairs, start a podcast. Most of them are going to suck,
Yeah.
but some of them are going to be good.
Right.
And like there needs to be needs
Right.
to be a genre, not two podcasts.
It's the same thing people said about blogs, and now everyone encourages you if you're trying to do anything to start a blog,
Right.
whether it's self-serving or just like whether you have cool ideas. It's like it can't hurt if it sucks, no one will read it unless you're propagating dangerous ideas. And even in that instance, it really doesn't hurt unless people read it, but they probably will because bad people love other bad people. But like, if you have good viewpoints and if they're in any way original, you can't hurt yourself by, I don't know.
The right never says, "Oh, do we have too many propaganda?"
Right, exactly. Yeah.
They never say that. And I mean, so we face a huge structural disadvantage in that competing with piles of money is very, 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 very hard. I mean, they can always outspend you. And so what you have to do is you have to be just way, way, way better. And I think it can be done, right? I think a lot about the types of, you're talking about your friend who's loves Joe Biden and is skeptical of socialism. But I think about that person a lot and, okay, how do we move them a little bit? How do I speak to such a person in a way that shows them that Joe Biden is not quite what they think? Right. That Joe Biden has said, like, he has no empathy for you. That's literally a quote. Literally, I have no empathy for young people who complain about their debt. So what can we do to show people? And I think
because she thinks they're talking about other young people. Yeah.
I feel like he's talking about you. He's talking about you right now. He does not care about your problems. And so I think you got to be organized. You got to think, well, how do we message people effectively in ways that they understand, that ways that are entertaining, that ways that keep their eyes glued. We want to get to the point where we're not just doing scrappy little podcasts where we have fucking Rush Limbaugh still getting 3 million listeners every day or whatever for his 3-hour-long show. Joe Rogan's getting 3 million views on every YouTube video. We can get there because I think that you have some sort of faith that the potential audience is out there. It's just about how do you put out good things, how do you do them well, how do you do them consistently, and slowly you build up an audience, slowly you shift public opinion in your direction, and public opinion has been moving in a left direction since Bernie's campaign in 2016. There's been this gigantic swing to the left.
Didn't someone call you the leftist Joe Rogan?
I
was looking at I didn't click on it, but I was looking at your Twitter. Yeah. And you were like, I wouldn't say the leftist Joe Rogan. Ooh, what was that about?
That was a conversation I was having in the office. Okay. Where Eli and I were discussing the fact that if we put together an interview show, we didn't want to end it up being a leftist Joe Rogan. But in some ways, I think that's what you want, because God, that guy gets a lot of people watch him for hours and hours and hours. Talking complete bullshit. People who are just stupid, right? People like Alex Jones. Well, Alex Jones has a talent, which we're writing about at the moment. But
I mean, Rogan's whole appeal is like that is his base. He just is appealing to like fragile masculinity.
Very successfully though.
It's a very big fucking market.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who like wish they were like kind of smart and very huge.
I have a pretty strong conviction that like one of Joe Rogan's secrets is actually the length of his podcast, because I think that one of the biggest drivers of podcast success is human loneliness and like the desire to feel like someone else
a friend.
Like to have someone to talk to.
Shout out to all the sad motherfuckers listening to this by themselves
all 114 of you.
If even.
No, believe me, I like obsessively comb the analytics.
Yeah.
Speaking of analytics, who's the guy that or human? Who's the person at Current Affairs who like pays the most attention to how articles do?
So Eli has started looking at it because I adamantly refuse.
That's
I don't look at view counts for articles. I don't know how many. I don't know the maximum we've ever gotten. I know when an article does well because I see it getting a lot of retweets. I see it. I start getting emails about it, people talking about it. But I try not to keep track because other major media outlets, one of the really devastating things has been that they're obsessively click focused. And when I've written for newspapers, they track it by the hour. They're like, your article did really, really well from 10 a.m. to noon. Right. And they have like in their offices, some of them display like a board.
Yeah, Gawker used to do that. They had like a scoreboard. Yeah.
And it makes
it's inhumane. Yeah,
it makes your writing so much worse. Yeah. And you've got to be willing to take the risk of writing an article that nobody reads but is good and needs to be said.
So much parallels to comedy.
Yeah.
Like how comedy gets worse when you just have to put out, like when people get famous, they get worse at comedy because you have this person like put out more shit.
Right.
And that's not what comedy is. And
There are a lot of people who only make money when you produce content.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Right.
they're all
Shit
in your
and
ear all the time.
Cater to the audience you've developed. Don't like think about saying something that contradicts.
don't
you.
think about bombing,
Yeah.
never try anything new. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same game for the media too.
Yeah, you gotta get away from it. It's really important. So I never look at the numbers ever, and we just write what we're going to write.
Yeah.
And the only number I look at is, are we getting enough subscribers each month? Because if we are beholden solely to the subscribers.
Right. And you need to sustain yourself as a.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the money coming in, we have to look at the money coming in.
Right. Which is not selfish. It's not about. It's not that same media mindset. Because yeah. Anyway, that's fine. I was going to also ask about the down with minimalism. Isn't that what it was called? Yeah.
Death to minimalism.
Death to minimalism.
It's funny, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't understand the point that you were trying to make. I understood that you were saying like New Orleans is like the opposite of a minimalist city, and like the more gentrified places get, the more minimalist they get. And like I understood all of that.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand, and I think you're an amazing writer.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the point other than New Orleans rules.
That
was the point?
No point other than New Orleans.
Yeah. Okay.
But there is this thing that I think there is an aesthetic that is, I think, tied to capitalism a little bit that I find disturbing. And you can see it when you go in a Bank of America, and you can see it when you go in an any kind of office block,
Or if you pick up a copy of Dwell.
Or if you pick up a copy of lots of things, which is like efficiency means we can't do anything that doesn't obviously have economic value.
Right.
And it's sort of led to like, I mean, everything in New Orleans. New Orleans is a city full of little decorative touches everywhere. Everywhere you look, there are these totally unnecessary things. And I just went. It's Super Sunday for the Mardi Gras Indians. I went out to see Mardi Gras Indians today, and that is a key example of like aesthetic maximalism. It's like, how many feathers can we put on this thing? We're going to spend an entire year sewing this costume that's going to be used for a day. We're going to spend a fortune on it. It's so inefficient. It cannot be justified by any kind of economic logic.
Right.
And I love that way of thinking because it's so non-capitalistic. The capitalistic way of approaching a problem and approaching aesthetics is, how do we get the most result for the minimum amount of
Right.
thing?
I would also not discount
honestly,
like
I
the.
hate subtlety. Like, I want things to be big, and
Yeah.
this is a place where it's like that.
I also get annoyed though about how people who come here are just like, Mardi Gras is about like specifically white people who are transplants, who are like, Mardi Gras is about spending so much time on your fucking costume. And I'm like, well, you're not a fucking Mardi Gras Indian, and I have a job, and I'm just gonna throw some glitter on my tits and call it a fucking day because Mardi Gras is only a big deal to you because you haven't done it 30 times.
Yeah.
So I definitely do say I get a little bit annoyed by the romanticization, but I think I agree with you, especially for like Mardi Gras Indians.
Right.
But that's like something that its roots. I think a lot of people that come here think that like part of being a New Orleanian is abandoning like efficiency, and I don't think that that's true because sometimes people can't do that. Like sometimes people are
I even
artists that
get-
work 13 hours a week.
I love Laura Sanders, and a ton of people do this. I even think that the people will say like the show's going to start in like 10 New Orleans minutes,
Right.
And
I do that.
even that bothers me.
I do that
really?
only because everyone says that.
Yeah.
But I also am like I'm actually an incredibly neurotic person who like if I say. If I say the show's going to start in 10 New Orleans minutes, it's going to start in 8 minutes. Because I'm like, we got to start the show, man. We have so much things to do. Anyway, so, yeah.
Back to, I can't fucking stop talking about the like moving company job on this podcast, but with the like minimalism thing being tied to the capitalist ideology, I used to move so many people into these like horrible new like McMansions that were actually like pretty fucking cheap in like the Minneapolis suburbs when I was still doing it up there, and like every single room has a very specific function. It's like this was designed to be the child's room. It could be nothing but the child's room. Everything is like flat. There's angular, like disgusting, hollow. The lawn can only look one way. Like it's like there's like no room for creativity whatsoever. And 100% of the people that I moved into that, like those kind of things, are going to like never, or I mean, hopefully it changes, but like they've carved out a space in their lives where they're not going to engage with anything new ever again.
Yeah.
Like that's what buying one of those fucking houses is. And like it really is like there's something about like just having a horrible minimalist aesthetic that like kills your brain.
Oh, I hate the minimalist aesthetic. I mean, I live in a ranch house, but it's only because that's what my fiance bought. But like, I do hate the minimalist aesthetic.
It still kind of looks cool because it's like that like 70s like White House
I love
style.
it.
I like your house,
I love
actually.
it. Also, my mom's extremely anti-ranch house because she hates the suburbs and she's like an uptown bitch, and so she hates my house, and it's the most rebellious thing I've ever done. She hates it more than my tattoos. Like So
I actually don't agree that that minimalism is like a purely like is capitalistic purely because of its like utilitarian kind of situation. I think it's also just like a class mark, like a lack of clutter is a class marker. Like both, it's incredibly, and it's like if it takes time to maintain, it's a fucking class marker, and like
because you can hire people to do it.
Right. I mean, and like we are now at a stage of capitalism where like. That was a horrible sound. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to start that sentence over. That came from my throat. We're now at a stage of capitalism where plenty is no longer really a class marker in the United States, right? So like this,
a lot of people can have plenty of shit. It's
exactly.
Just, yeah.
And so now it's like I think it's reactive, and I think it's like
having the downtime to
but the scarcity mindset makes you keep your shit.
Or whatever your life is like. That's a class marker.
And I think scarcity mindset's a big thing too.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, like. Yeah, even I have that. Like, I'm like, I might need this. I can't throw it away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also just like I don't have a ton of time, and I have a ton more time than you or anyone I know, and I still don't feel like I have a ton of time. And like having things ready to hand is really important to me. And so my fucking office is a disaster. But I don't know.
Where do you live, Nathan? What's your address? No, I'm just kidding. But what part of the city do you live in?
What's your social?
I live in the French Quarter. I live in on Domain Street by Domain and Charters.
You hear that, Stans?
You live by Kate. Does Kate
I
still live?
I live like 2 blocks from Kate.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Do you live in like kind of a place similar to hers with like a courtyard and stuff?
I do.
Once again, shout out to Kate Root. I love you.
Yeah, Kate Root. It's cool.
Every episode, she's got a shout out. She's gonna. Do we have a date for her schedule yet?
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, bring her on. She's fun. She has revolutionized current affairs through.
Awesome.
She's an incredibly organized person and actually knows how to run things really, really well, like our organization.
The process of booking you for this podcast was entirely through Kate.
Yeah.
I sent you an email, and then she was manning the inbox, and so she responded, and then I emailed you, and then you responded, and then Kate was like, just email me. I'll put it on his schedule.
That's what
I'll make sure that he's. She's like I stood over him and made sure that he responded to
That's
the
what
email.
she does.
Yeah.
She comes in and she's like, Nathan, how many emails have you not responded to? We're going to sit here right now. And I'm like, I'll get them done as soon as you leave. And she's like, how about you get them done now while I'm here?
Yeah.
And then they'll be done with, because she knows I'm not going to.
Yeah. She's an accountability genius.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
She knows. She's come up with so many methods of making sure that things that never previously got done actually get done.
She does the exact same thing for New Orleans DSA, and I'm so bad at all that shit.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kate Root. We'll have her on soon. How are you doing on time? Are you?
I gotta go in a little bit, but
Okay.
so we should.
What's the book you have?
Oh gosh, I can't. I'm always judged by the books I've got with me. Even
I'm
though
not.
they're
I was just
necessarily-
asking what it
You
was.
can't help it, you know. So because I'm always carrying books that I'm. This book though is it's called The People's Republic of Walmart, and it's a stupid. I mean, it's put out by Verso in partnership with Jacobin, actually, because essentially they're making the argument that like big corporations operate kind of like centrally planned economies, and that they prove that the argument that you need markets doesn't actually hold, because within companies there are no markets and they work very well, so all you need to do is nationalize everything, and then you'll be fine.
I mean, it's the same thing as like the military.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So it's arguing that like institutions like Walmart and the military prove that the entire idea that you need markets is false.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't produce anything better. It just produces more shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that I think the argument of the book is really sound. It's just a title that makes it look like a book that I don't want to be carrying.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's so far it's really excellent.
I was just curious because I feel like the only people that carry books around are people that don't drink, because then you'll be reading at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like I never want to waste time. So if I'm ever like ever get stuck anywhere, I want to make sure that I have a book on me so that I can be reading. Otherwise, I get really antsy.
I used to be that way, and then I realized I was never going to do it, and the books got ruined in my bag.
It's too late to do this, but the best episodes that we do, I think, are more about the person than about what the person does.
Yeah, I wish we had talked more to you about like who you are and not just what you do.
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah, you're joking, but I get the sense that you really like to separate the personal narrative from the work.
I don't like talking about myself.
Why is that?
I'm so uninterested in myself, and it's a distraction from
so
the things that are very.
Man,
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around not being interested in myself. I'm doing a podcast right now. That's
Right,
like the
yeah.
most
Well,
self-interested
the other thing is,
about me.
Yeah, what?
ruthlessly committed to the enterprise of current affairs. So everything I talk about has to be the thing, because we got to get new subscribers, we got to get new readers. So I try. There's no time to think about who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing, where it came from. It's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but the human. I mean, like most of the media I consume, I mean, especially now. This wasn't the case before podcasts and before the internet, but now, like the books I read, I'm as interested, and I enjoy as much consuming information about the person than like their product. I don't know. I think that basically every time somebody does something good, and I think current affairs is really good, I want to know who made it, and like if the conditions that gave birth to the thing are conditions that I have access to, so I can do something similar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because you know how Bernie Sanders has had to be, they've had all his campaign people have had to put so much pressure on him to say anything about like how he developed his political beliefs,
Right.
what he did in his life, like who he is, because he just wants to go like Republicans want to cut your Social Security, and
Right.
that's all he wants to say over and
Yeah.
over and over. I'm like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm like the, you know, my campaign people have to like drag me into a room and you're gonna tell people who you are, where you came from,
Right.
why they should listen to you, rather than just going like, here are my opinions.
You need a Kate of communications.
Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, the last thing you published on current affairs was the like how to write a political puff piece.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was good.
yeah.
And it like at a certain point, like you can sell yourself however the fuck you want to sell yourself, but like eventually you have to have an idea, and just fucking.
I don't know. Do you look at Beto? Beto's fucking cruising. I mean,
Yeah,
he's not going to get elected.
doing well.
He's not going to get elected president, but he's gonna get elected to Senate.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
next time.
surprised how far you could get without any idea.
He's devoid of ideas. It's incredible. Yeah. Like,
A very long way.
Right, but you have to have such a massive ego to like go that route.
I think one reason I'm very skeptical or careful here is because like I look at someone like Barack Obama, who was all narrative, entirely a personal narrative about who he was, where he came from, why he was the guy.
He wrote 2 books about his dad.
It's just all about.
hey, don't knock
himself.
writing books about your dad. I'm working on that. Sorry, keep going.
I'm himself. And I just think there needs to be a radical correction in the other direction, where it needs to not be about you. It needs to be about the things that you're going to do, the things that politics is about, and the things that you're doing them for, the people that you're doing them for.
But just because you communicate your own like personal narrative because a podcast host is rudely drawing it out of you, like it doesn't mean that you're as devoid of that you're going to like betray your people the way like Obama did.
I don't have a personal narrative though. I find narratives kind of strange because you could build narratives. Narratives are probably you think of. I don't have the facts about me, but I like the idea. There's no like story to tell because I haven't
Mysterious
come up with a story.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, like to a certain extent, like action is who you are. And there are so many people in politics and in media and like celebrity culture in general where you're just selling who you are and you don't necessarily have to do anything. You just kind of...
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're a figure, and like accessibility at every single moment, especially nowadays, to like the kind of person you are is like the most important thing, and you don't have to have any substance.
Yeah.
And I don't think it works for people in the long run at all.
As the resident navel gazer of the podcast, I really want to put my foot down in favor of like, what are you even fighting for if... You seem to equate the word narrative with like artifice, and it is, but like that's I just mean like the human element, and
Sure.
I think of it in terms of narrative, but like what I think that like
This is so funny because I'm just like fighting you to like defend like Nathan not
oh no I'm not
saying anything about himself.
no.
I'm like, no man, you don't gotta say shit, dude.
I'm not and you
I
don't.
appreciate that intervention.
I'm saying like I think that if you have a preference where you don't want to talk about yourself, that's one thing. But if you extrapolate then like a series of principles about how people shouldn't talk about themselves, I take issue.
Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that people shouldn't talk about themselves.
I mean, I shouldn't talk about. I'm going to. I shouldn't.
I was implying sort of just that, like I don't know. It's just that I'm careful. I think it's important to be careful about not just when you're doing political stuff, especially, like because what I do is political, and in politics, the stories, the human stories are manipulative oftentimes. Like Beto O'Rourke is the most extreme example of someone.
His name is like a political construct,
right?
Yeah.
Jeff Gaucher said that first, and I was just like, whatever. He's running against Ted Cruz. Leave him alone.
Right. And now
Now it's right.
Now his
yes.
Wikipedia article is like his dad named him Beto because it would help him in politics.
Yeah, it's
Literally he was 0 years old when
that's why he was born to do it.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
He's not wrong when he says he was born to be part of it.
Right.
This is the
right.
only
He's a
thing
bad,
that he was
he's a
designed to do.
bad big tooth man who I would
Totally
let eat me
bummed.
out. Yeah.
That was so much more specific. Yeah. I don't find him that
Get around those
attractive.
teeth.
For politics.
For
I would
politics,
never
he's
vote
attractive.
for him, but like when he was running against Ted Cruz, I was really sad that he lost, and I also would deeply want to fuck him.
I
But
find him
Any man who's
I know he's
taller than me, I
disgusting.
consider it
I find him
attractive.
disgusting now that he's instead of running for Senate, running for president. Like that.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting. I'm like, what the
that's
hell are you
thing that-
doing?
yeah.
No, he's the worst. And then he's
Because
like,
he could totally win in Texas.
he's pathetic.
Yeah.
Perfect for fucking me though. Not good for president.
We should have him on the pod. Mm-hmm. We should send him this episode. I'm sure, like, there's no way that he wouldn't be into it based on his wife's expression when in that video where he like declared his candidacy, and she's just like,
Well, all the articles, to the extent that she gets to speak in the articles, she's like expressing real misgivings, like I really don't want to do.
Don't want to do. Yeah.
And his whole family is like, please
don't do this.
And
Yeah.
he's like, I have to do this. It's just like who I am.
Ugh.
Have you also seen the video of Ted Cruz trying to give his daughter a hug, and she's just repulsed by having to hug her father.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a
Because her
horrible
father's
man.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah, he's
Like, it's
Yeah.
scary.
a
Yeah, the
fucking
Trump
swamp
kids really
monster.
fucked up by not just being like, no, fuck you, dad. Like, I
Well,
feel.
one of them, fucking
Yeah,
like
Tiffany, the one that
yeah.
no one likes. Yeah, or that he hates and that everyone else is like more sympathetic to. Yeah. But none of them I mean. Also, I don't think that the fake Melania looks fake. I think that it just looks like Melania at bad
agree.
angles.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So people on Twitter have been starting to really believe that there's a fake Melania. And why are y'all laughing at me?
No, because
No,
we're
it's
laughing at the
how-
premise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like a fake Melania.
Right.
She's just
You are wearing your headphones in a completely
Very ridiculous
ridiculous
way.
way.
I have a top
but
bun.
your hair looks awesome. I will
Thank
say
you.
that. But
Thank
go on.
you.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
your headphones look like shit.
I know they look very, very stupid.
Okay,
Here,
keep
I'll
going.
put them on the front way.
They're
Is that better?
that
for
is
you?
that
Just
is
go
better.
full Geordie LaForge and have them
Over your eyes.
There we go.
No, they don't stay that
Okay,
way.
okay.
It's insane, and it doesn't that look like Melania on the left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want this.
Nathan's so bored he's gonna kill himself.
I want this all to end in Trump is just doing Kaufman, or like when MF Doom hired an MF Doom impersonator to do
Yeah.
a whole concert.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
show.
you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was
Really fun. Yeah.
And I mean, I think people can probably glean from everything so far, but plugs.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, everyone should go to currentaffairs.org. They should read all of our articles. They should subscribe to our beautiful print magazine, which comes once every other month and is gorgeous. And they should listen to our podcast, patreon.com/currentaffairs. And they should stay tuned for current affairs video content coming soon.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for being on the show.
All right.
All right, peace, man.